Okay, here goes nothing. I'm going to try to sculpt a rose for the first time, and maybe it wasn't the wisest decision for me to do this without looking at any reference photos, but then again, I like to make everything way more difficult for myself. So originally I was going to do multiple roses using different methods to kind of test them out and see which one was easier for me. I was going to model one like I'm currently doing, and I was going to sculpt one from scratch. What I ended up doing is just doing a single rose. I figured if I could just get one decent rose using any method, then that would be good enough practice, because really the whole point of this was for me to practice modeling. And this is something I have been working on and off for a few months, just because I haven't been keeping up with it. So it's not that it took that long to do, I just kept putting it off for weeks and weeks and then working on it for 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. It didn't really take that long, but yeah, it took me a while to get this video out just because I've been distracted with other things. Anyway, back to what I was saying before. So I decided to use a combination of modeling and sculpting just to get a good finished result for the entire rose. Throughout the process, there was a lot of things I saw about it that I know looked wrong. Like, I know this looks wrong, and I know how I could fix it, but part of me was just too lazy to fix it because I was trying to do it as fast as possible. Even though it took me months, that's just because I kept putting it off. I've never seen how other people would sculpt a rose or a very detailed one, so I was making up this whole process on my own, just thinking about the structure of the petals and how those might be layered on top of each other. I didn't get them to connect super well. There's a lot of weird gaps and things, but I wasn't trying to get it perfect. I was just trying to get something that looked like a rose. I didn't really care if the model itself was exactly perfect. And later on, I did kind of sculpt it a bit to try to fill in some of those holes, but there's still a lot of mistakes that you can find with this model. It's by no means perfect, but the whole point of this exercise was for me to just get a rose shape, not necessarily to get the modeling 100% perfect. Despite all of the many errors this rose has, I think the end result looked better than I thought it would. I actually was pretty proud of myself for getting a somewhat realistic rose, except for the textures. I know there are a lot of things I should have done with it, but here's the thing. That's something that I'm still trying to learn how to do, so I just gave it the most basic texturing I know how, which is basically just a gradient of color. I know there's more I could have done with it. I kind of wish I put some kind of bump map on the petals itself, maybe even the stem and the leaves. I know there is more I could have done to make it more realistic, but I am learning how to texture very slowly because for some reason, that's the part of Blender that always confuses my brain and what makes it lock up. I can follow a tutorial just fine, but as far as understanding what I'm doing, that's gonna take me a little bit of time, so I'm just taking it slow, not trying anything too crazy at first. And we might just have a few things that just have solid flat colors like this. So I'm just going to focus on trying to get a decent model, and like I said, I know the modeling is not perfect, but at least the final result looks like what I wanted it to, or you can tell what it is, and it actually looks somewhat realistic. I think the most important thing I learned from doing this is how to break apart the model of a rose itself and figure out how am I going to put these layers together, because you know how flowers are, the petals are all layered, and how do you piece those layers together to make a whole rose shape? So that in itself was enough exercise for my brain for this project. So I learned a little bit and tinkered a bit with modeling and texturing. You know how it is in Blender, you just kind of mess around until you get something. And even if that something isn't made in the best way, at least I did something, and at least I got some practice out of it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of this time lapse. I'm sorry it took so long for me to make this video, because it's something I started a long time ago. But maybe it will inspire you to do your own little practice project or try to make an even better rose than mine. At least now I have a better idea of how to go about doing it should I ever attempt to do something like this again. Enjoy the rest of this rose crafting process, and I hope to see you again in another video.